All right, good morning. So I want to start out by making it an admission here. I'm kind of up here on a bit of a fallacy. I am not a security guy. I'm not a hacker. I don't live in my mom's basement, and I don't actually even own a hoodie. And I'm not a compliance guy. I know I dress like one, but I'm actually kind of cool. What I am is an enabler. So my job is to enable our company to do business securely, to enable people to do risky things safely. And with apologies to Kubrick, I started my career as a network administrator about 15, 20 years ago. And as a network admin, we really approach security from a completely different point of view. We aren't really that concerned about confidentiality. What we're really concerned about is availability. What I got rated on was uptime, right? Is the system up? If the system's down, how quickly can I get it back up? I have to enable people to be able to go and do their jobs. So in the beginning, this was actually pretty easy. My biggest threat were my users, right? We call them now internal threats. So I had a office manager who decided one day she was going to reorganize all of her files by extension. So we have nice folders for our batch files or comms, DLLs. This doesn't work. Happily, I got to her before she rebooted her machine and trashed the whole thing. And was able to restore her data before that happened. As our systems grew, our networks grew, they moved from being local to being connected to the internet. We started seeing worms and viruses come across. So they have now infamous names: Code Red, Nimda, Melissa. This here is the source code, the core code for Melissa. So this was one of the first kind of real internet scale viruses, right, or worms. It circled the globe in just hours, infecting tens of thousands of machines. And at its core was just 6 lines of code. I mean, these things were trivially easy to write. The nice thing is they weren't really that destructive, just really going after that availability, tenet of security. As the systems that I managed got bigger and bigger and connected more people, we started seeing bigger attacks. I had a spammer from China guess the password for one of my users and send tens of thousands of spam emails through my mail server, bringing it to its knees. I had an attacker compromise a phone server and use that as part of a denial of service against a company in Taiwan. These attacks just got larger and more brazen as the machines we connected got bigger as well. So how did we respond? We approached security like a castle. We created a moat out of firewalls. We created a drawbridge, right, with a VPN. We created big 3-foot thick walls, moved all of our data and our desktops inside, and then required a secret code, right, to get through the gate and get in. Now, this worked pretty well for a while. It wasn't very enabling. The users didn't like it much because they had to be inside of that castle in order to do any work. But because our desktops were big and bulky and our mainframes were big and bulky, it worked. And then we started seeing mobile devices and laptops. Users wanted to begin working outside of the office. And that started chipping away, right, at this approach. So what did we do? We responded the only way we knew how. We required super strong passwords. So I remember my payroll system required 12 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, and you couldn't use the same letter twice. Now, I'm the system administrator, and honestly, even I gave up. You know how I got in? I pushed the password reset button, got the email, reset the password to something, and then got in and did my work in payroll. Now, if I can't be bothered to remember the password, how am I ever going to expect my users to do that? And they didn't, right? They put their passwords on Post-it notes on the sides of their monitor or underneath the keyboard. They reused the same password across multiple sites, whether they be internal or external. So when a major social network lost 100 million hashed passwords around 2012, I had to reset the password for every one of my employees. So I didn't know, right? Maybe it was leaked, maybe it wasn't. We couldn't take that chance. You can imagine the impact to help desk when everybody in your company gets a password reset email. So Amit talked a bit earlier about putting controls in place and how users will always find some unique way to defeat those security controls to get their jobs done. Well, this is one of my favorites. Yes, these are RSA Secure ID tokens on a webcam on the open internet. Thanks, guys. So that brings us to cloud, right? Employees, they need to be mobile. No longer can we just tie them down inside of that castle with strong passwords, with MFA tokens. We began to start seeing more and more adoption of cloud applications. And as an IT person, right, there's very little that I can do to stop this. Sure, we can go and play whack-a-mole at the firewall, but a recent survey shows that the average federal employee uses 26 cloud applications every day. The average federal agency uses almost 950 unique cloud applications. As an admin, I can't stand up to that kind of pressure. So employees are not rated on security. They're always going to find the easiest way to get their jobs done. And as I looked at this, I had to sit down and come up with a realization. And that is that no longer could I control what applications employees use. Instead, I have to make the approved corporate applications more attractive than the others. The controls we used to be able to put in place, right? Financial controls. A CRM system cost $1 million and took 9 months to implement. Now, an employee can purchase that as a service on the internet for $20 a month on their corporate credit card. That's discretionary spending. It doesn't even show up on an expense account. We can't rely on those old controls, on that old castle anymore, because our employees need to get their jobs done. They're going to go around us. And this creates that shadow IT problem that we all have come to know and love. So how did I solve the problem? I started with single sign-on at the core. By moving identity to the center, we were able to simplify deployment of applications and start creating a path instead of that shortcut. Employees don't want to remember dozens of passwords. They don't want to have dozens of bookmarks to go to those applications that they need. When we put identity at the center, we give them a dashboard with all of their applications, with all of their information, easy and at their fingertips. We also enable just-in-time provisioning. Why do we have a shadow IT problem? Because IT doesn't respond fast enough and deploy software when an employee needs it. With identity, we can then do that now automatically by pushing attributes through a system into those applications. When an employee sits down at their desk, on that dashboard is everything that they need. They don't have to go hunting around on the internet for that app they used at their last company that they really liked and think we should be using. Now, remember those multi-factor tokens out on the webcam? Now, the reason for that is because we weren't putting authentication in the right place. Now, sure, we all want the CEO to know who we are, but not because Joe in sales missed the big client demo because he left his MFA key on his dresser at home. When we put identity at the center, we can start making risk-based decisions on access and access control. So now, using attributes like the user, their location, what device they're on, we can make decisions on whether we want to enforce a step-up authentication, multi-factor, if we want to maybe prevent access. So while I'm here in DC, I should be able to access my email to print my boarding pass from the hotel business computer, but I shouldn't be accessing our HR data. So let's find a way to block that. Now, once we started really deploying identity and access management and enabling cloud use, businesses or business units began to come to me in IT for solutions. They saw the benefit: quick access, strong uptake, and easy reporting. But we still couldn't keep ahead of that shadow IT problem. Now, IT was becoming kind of the yes team. People wanted to talk to us. And because we had identity at our core, we also know who was using what applications, when, and how. Thus, when it came to renewal time, we could go to finance and say, well, you know, this Salesforce guy says that we're using 1,000 licenses, but really we're only using 100. Let's just pay for that. Now, IT is not costing the company money, we're saving the company money. You mentioned I still couldn't keep up, though. The pace of business is just too fast for the size of our IT departments. The only solution was to hand over the keys. So sales, they were my slowest adopter. They felt that they knew more about their data and their process than I did. And quite honestly, they were right. Now, if a sales guy, when he sat down at his desk on day one, didn't have access to Salesforce and Marketo and Tableau and all of the other applications that they needed, they couldn't be productive. They couldn't sell our product, couldn't make the company money. So sales built a really strong shadow IT team in order to make sure that was never the case. Now, with identity at the core, we began to move them over. We began to convince them that giving security the visibility we needed was a good thing, right? Because sales didn't want to actually do the account management. They didn't want to shut people off when they left or change teams. They just wanted to make sure everyone had the access they needed on day one. So with application assignment workflows, we were able to give the sales IT group the permissions that they needed, the access that they needed to assign applications and control them and feel like they maintained ownership of their apps, while IT and security got the logging, the usage, and the visibility we needed, and that capability to shut an employee off the day they left the company, whether they wanted to or not. So, as a system administrator, this used to be my life. Right? I was chained to a desk watching progress bars, an endless cycle of patching, testing, and deploying. Instead of adding value to the company, I was adding security. By moving identity to the cloud, by adopting cloud applications, I went from being chained to a desk to being able to work wherever and whenever I was most productive. Instead of adding security, I was adding value. And instead of watching progress bars, I was making progress. So we're Okta. Thank you very much. Have a great day.